Hello and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast. Hoping you guys are doing wonderful, getting it done both in and out of the gym. So one of my favorite things to talk about in the fitness world and in the bodybuilding world, and basically I think what my philosophies have aligned to even when I first started this, is that making things less complicated. I think that is a great outlook on life, but also on goals. Because often when we get involved in any kind of goal, sometimes we tend to make it more complicated instead of just doing the daily task day in and day out. And I believe when it comes to competing, reaching a fitness goal, it gets lost in today's fitness culture, especially with social media and the constant overload of information. So that's why I want to talk about that bodybuilding really isn't that complicated. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. No, we know that, it can be hard. It's, absolutely not easy, but complicated and difficult are really two different things. The reality is, if you want to step on stage one day or you want to improve your physique, or you just want to live the bodybuilding lifestyle, most of your success comes from doing the simple things. Let me say that again. The simple things, but over and over and over again. That is the difficult part because it can become monotonous. That, to me, is what really brings out the best when it comes to reaching any kind of goal. The reality of the lifestyle of a competitor is simple. It's day by day, meal by meal, workout by workout. And then, you need to make adjustments when needed. And most importantly, learning yourself throughout the process while having the proper guidance, aka a coach, if necessary, and staying patient enough to evolve. That basically summarizes it. The first part is the weight training. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that there's some magical workout split, exercise, or advanced technique that suddenly changes, everything overnight. But bodybuilding has always been built on the same core principles when it comes to training. Progressive overload, adding weight when necessary, when you can, consistency, proper recovery, execution of your training, learning proper form, mind-muscle connection. That's really it. You can capture that, you're on your way to building your body. People spend way too much time jumping from program to program. And again, I blame coaches, social media, trying to convince others that there's some kind of secret. But most physiques are built from accumulating quality of work just over years, not weeks, not days, and especially not from constantly changing directions. You basically learn what exercises fit your structure, what movements you connect to the best, how hard you really need to push, which most people may not be doing day in and day out, and also recovery. Because bodybuilding really is individual. You need to learn for yourself. We have all different leverage points, structures, recovery abilities, responses to training. That's why if you want to blindly copy someone else's workout, it's not going to always work, guys. The goal is to learn your body, improve over time, not emotionally bouncing around every time you see a new trend online. That is weight training. That's the simplicity of it, as long as you allow it to be. And then, of course, time. Diet, very similar. Consistency for the win. Now, where people overcomplicate things, everybody wants, the perfect macro ratio, the secret supplements, the magic fat burner, the perfect peak week trick. Meanwhile, a lot of these people that look for these extra things simply are struggling to be consistent Monday through Sunday. They're looking ahead rather than focusing on what they can control. Most physiques are not built through extremes, they're built through consistency. Bodybuilding nutrition really comes down to these things. Hitting your targets consistently, managing your hunger, staying structured, being patient, and most importantly, being honest with yourself. That's where discipline comes in. But I'm going to say this, discipline really is not about starving yourself, thinking that that's the only way you're going to reach your goal. Discipline isn't suffering all the time. Discipline is simply executing even when motivation disappears. And that's why if you go back and listen to my last few podcasts, you'll pick up the trend about doing this for yourself, you versus you, in the dark. Because motivation, guys, comes and goes. Believe me, I know. I've been there, where you can be really high one week, feeling great, nailing everything, and then it fades. But guess what? If you want your progress to continue, you still got to push forward without the motivation. And that's where structure and positive habits really will carry you long term. And honestly, consistency will beat motivation every single time. One perfect day is not going to change your physique, but stacking productive days together over months and years absolutely will. So that's why it's a constant evolution. And that's where good coaching and guidance can be very valuable if you feel the need for it. Not because, I or other coaches have the magic answers, but it's also because to keep everything, objective, structured, and focus on what actually matters instead of emotionally reacting every week. Because when we do this, our emotions tend to rise up a little bit more, and we expect to have great results when we do have a perfect week. But that's not how the body works. It's more complicated than that. And sometimes just learning how to be grounded with good guidance can really make the difference in keeping your head straight and moving forward. Now, another part, in addition to managing and capturing the proper weight training routine, focusing on your diet and nutrition, is chasing trends versus mastering the basics. There's two sides to the coin. And I think this leads to another major problem in today's day and age of modern bodybuilding. Physique competition is chasing those trends. And this has been going on for years, and there's newer stuff that's been popping up. Every few months, there's a new supplement stack, something that arises from the ashes on social media, a new training method by one coach, new optimal cardio style that you got to do that you're going to be burning fat more, a new recovery gadget, fat burning claim, a new influencer saying everything else is wrong, but you got to do what they do because it worked for them. Now, I'm not saying that innovation's bad. I have learned a lot of new things over the years, and a lot of things that I used to believe in as a coach have been debunked. And I admit it. And I've talked about that before in one of my previous podcasts. So absolutely, things do evolve over time. But what people fail to realize is that physique goals and physique athletes are still mostly built from the same principles that they were built from decades ago. That's hard training, constant and consistent nutrition, recovery, time, patience. That will never go away. And honestly, all those shiny, dangly things are never going to replace the hard work. Yet social media still creates the illusion that the missing piece is always something external. One week, you'll see this one supplement will change everything, it will pop up. Next week, a different way of doing cardio, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, the person that's always looking at these things is chasing all this information and hasn't even been consistent for 6 straight months. That is the major disconnect in today's physique world. People want advanced answers before mastering the beginner responsibilities. And honestly, if you look at people who consistently improve after year, their approach is pretty boring. And that's really what ties in that bodybuilding isn't that complicated. It can be boring. And that's the hard mental part about it. And when I mean boring, I'm saying they train hard, they eat well consistently, they sleep well, they stay patient, they make the adjustments when necessary, and they repeat, rinse and repeat. That's bodybuilding. It's that simple. It's not chasing every shiny object online or what you may talk to someone at a bodybuilding show. And because a lot of it now is a money-making scheme, right? Influencers are selling products online. They're just trying to throw shit out there, see if it sticks, and they'll make some money. And coaches the same way. They'll throw shit out there, promote their one person that won a show, say they did it this way, that way, this way. It'll work for you. Most likely, that person had great genetics, and if they were to eat dirt, they would still win a bodybuilding show. And that's why you have to ask yourself, when you're looking at these things online that seem too good to be true, is it really sustainable? Is this really proven over time? Or is it just marketing? Because again, guys, there are no shortcuts around consistency. Now, ignoring the noise is difficult to do in today's day and age. And honestly, social media has changed bodybuilding tremendously. Now everyone has an opinion. Everyone's an expert. Everyone's trying to go viral for whatever. And sometimes people get more focused on broadcasting bodybuilding than actually living it. You know, you see constant comparisons, extreme approaches, fear tactics even, physique obsessions, validation seeking, overanalyzing every little detail. Meanwhile, the athletes quietly improving behind the scenes and that you don't hear from or see on social media and then come out and win shows, they're the ones that's focusing on the basics. That's the irony of all this. The people making the most noise often aren't the ones making the most progress. And comparison, to me, as you know, is dangerous because it will create more anxiety. You know, you'll start questioning yourself much more. Am I lean enough? Am I behind? Should I change my plan? Over and over again. Should I train differently? Should I eat less? Instead of asking and looking, am I improving compared to where I was a month ago, 2 months ago? That's the comparison that matters, is what you looked like a few months ago to a few years ago. That's what matters. You have to learn to black out that noise that you are looking often on social media. And really, time is the greatest equalizer. Once you master the basics, the boring basics that I touched upon, more time is basically going to be the great equalizer and give you the progress that you're after. It's not genetics alone. It's not supplements, shortcuts. It's time. Time combined with consistent effort is the key to success for bodybuilding. Doing what's necessary day in and day out without expecting life-changing results overnight. And this is where so many people lose their perspective, unfortunately. And that's the sad part, because I've been doing this for so many years. I see progress in people after a few months. It's not enough for them. But I remind them, listen, if you multiply this few months by 4 to equal a full year, and you keep on grinding, you're going to have exceptional results. But for some, it's just not enough. Real development often takes many years. Multiple off seasons from competing, trial and error, patience, adjustments. And this is really especially in natural bodybuilding and for all the divisions. Now, yeah, you can make great progress really fast, absolutely. But building an advanced physique naturally takes time. And honestly, that's one of the beautiful things about bodybuilding. Because if you stay after it, you're going to continue to improve years after years. You know, I've seen it at my shows. And I recently saw it at my last show, where there was a male bodybuilder who competed at a younger age. He looked good. And I don't know if it was 10 or 12 years ago, but he came back this year. He hasn't competed in that time and wins his pro card. That's powerful to me. That's showing the evolution of bodybuilding. And that to me is what represents natural bodybuilding, long-term growth, not rushing the process, not panicking because someone else is progressing faster, not quitting because it may take time, just continuing to build because muscle maturity matters, experience matters, learning your body really matters. And the physiques that truly stand out at bodybuilding shows are just built over time. That's what I always tell people. Don't get discouraged if things aren't happening overnight. Your hard work is paying off when you don't immediately see it. Bodybuilding rewards the people who stay the course. And sometimes the people who succeed the most are simply the ones that refuse to quit. And that's why I reiterate, bodybuilding's simple. It takes the consistency in and out of the gym. It takes the diet. It takes the balance and life flexibility that I always talk about. And not broadcasting it day in and day out. There's no reason to do that. At the end of the day, it's not complicated, guys. It's about training hard, intelligently, eating properly most of the time, listening to your body, staying patient, ignoring those distractions, and just learning about yourself. The real challenge isn't trying to find more information that you can interject. The challenge is just having the discipline to apply the simple things long enough to evolve and get better. That's what bodybuilding is. It's not perfection. It's not shortcuts, not social media validation, just showing up day in and day out. And that's why it's simple. I don't want people to think they got to do this and this and this and this and this over time. No, you're already working out most likely. You probably have a good handle on your diet. Now it's just tweaking, tightening things up a little bit more and just letting it roll because that's where progress is going to happen for you. And people probably don't hire me because I bring this up, but this is the truth. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to sell you that if you put all the pieces of the puzzle together and slowly build it, you're going to get the progress that you're after and make it a lifestyle. That's where people get lost because they want the hit, they want the boom, the rush, the compete, and then they fall apart. Well, no. I truly believe making this a lifestyle, keeping it simple, you are going to reach your goals. If you guys are into this episode, share it, tag me, all that good stuff. The direct links are always in the social media captions and all that. If you're looking for any help, training, nutrition, contest prep journey, reach out. FitFranco@Verizon.net is the best way to contact me. Team Franco Bodybuilding socials. Keep grinding, guys. I got you, and I'll talk to you next time.